Hello, welcome to NASCAR Weekend Preview Kansas Motor Speedway right here on the Grid Network, Grid Live. I'm Joe Samaniego. With me, Tanner Smith, editor at thepitboxpress.com. A little bit later, but we're very excited because we get to talk about everybody after qualifying. A big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin Michelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew for investing in the Grid Network. Link in the video description to be an investor. You can also do Buy Me a Coffee, YouTube Super Chat, and super thanks you're not watching us live. And the simplest way, subscribe, hit that bell icon, thumbs up, comment with who you think is going to win today's race. And of course, if we're going live on the air, you join us for the first time following the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race, share your questions and opinions in the chat room. Love to share them right here on the air. Now, Tanner, it's Saturday night. We just finished a truck race at Kansas Speedway. A lot of people always look forward to this race, the Advent 400 at Kansas Speedway. And last year, the finish did not disappoint. Chris Buescher declared the winner. But then the tape showed Kyle Larson just barely ahead. Kyle Larson, in review of the finish, claimed the winner. Now he's on the pole after qualifying. So he's going to be leading the field to the green flag, considering he led the field to the checker flag. 100 miles of Kansas, though. How big of an advantage is the pole for that 5 team? Or is that really any advantage being the pole sitter?
I think that the only advantage of being the pole sitter is the fact that your pit stall is selected first. So often you get the benefit of having the final stall on pit road, which gives you a shorter exit out of pit road and thus an inherent advantage over your competition, especially during yellow flag pit stops. I think with the advent of stage racing, the art of getting the pole kind of withered away a little bit because the race basically gets reset twice. But with all that said, we've seen Kyle Larson obviously put up tremendous performances here at Kansas Speedway. This exact style of track fits his style very well. He can rip the fence and, get closer to it and up against it better than anybody else in the field. And he's shown that with several strong runs here, including his ripping of the top on the final turn last year that led to a hearty duel between him and Chris Buescher coming to the finish line, which ultimately went his way. With that said, I don't think the pole is really going to matter too much. I mean, we've got to throw it back to last fall, which was our most recent trip here. Kyle Larson blew a tire on lap 20 and completely ruined his race, which obviously wasn't his fault, but that's just the nature of this sport. Nothing is really within your control, even if you get on the pole. So without trying to get all Dr. Seuss with it, I'll just say that Larson is in a pretty advantageous position with his pit selection, but at the end of the day, I really don't think pole in the Cup Series really matters all that much nowadays.
I have to agree. I feel like, as you said, being the pole sitter, especially on an oval track, it's not that big of an advantage compared to, say, IndyCar, Formula One. If you're on the pole, you're pretty much almost in a good spot to win, where you're further back. Especially in an oval like Kansas, you still have plenty of time to work your way towards the front. You know those stage breaks. You could almost plan out your strategy. The biggest thing, as you said, the pits road, having that first stall will be the best place because you just got to go a few feet before you get to the line and beat everyone out. Now, starting right next to him, somebody he beat to the line last fall, Chris Buescher, agonizingly close to that win. He was even starting to celebrate, and then he was told he did not win the race. Just a tough break for him. He missed the playoffs. Now this year, trying to win and get in the playoffs. We know we've talked about Roush Fenway, Keselowski, the struggles they've had. But today, Chris Buescher showing the speed. But will that speed be able to last all 400 miles tomorrow?
I would like to think so. It seemed that he and crew chief Scott Graves really hit on something last spring that unfortunately it didn't seem they were able to carry over to the fall race, which I'm not exactly sure what exactly led into that, but it might have been because the spring race, if I remember correctly, I don't know if it got slightly rain delayed or what, but it ended in the evening. But even then, Buescher had a really strong car throughout the middle part of the race. I think what was lost in Larson's incredible victory and how close it was in the second stage, Chris Buescher shot through the middle of a 5 wide situation and came out on top on the front stretch. So Chris Buescher is not afraid to make the moves necessary to put himself up front and have a strong run. I think that this will be a really big opportunity for that race team to get some stage points, especially. That is something this team, I noted in my year in review for Buescher that you can find on pitboxpress.com, that he really lacked in the stage point department last year. And unfortunately, he's kind of following that same trend again this year. But as we saw a few years ago, RFK really picked it up around this point in the season. And I think that kind of representation, having, some semblance of speed in qualifying will hopefully carry over to Sunday. And if this race goes on any sort of like a long run towards the end of the event, I have a feeling that Buescher, who is pretty masterful at holding on to his equipment and maintaining his tires, I think that he will definitely be put in a great position to contend for the victory. But again, like I said with Kyle Larson, last fall, he blew a tire on lap 20 with a really fast race car and it completely derailed his day. So it's really anyone's guess what's going to happen. But I think that Buescher definitely has a really strong shot tomorrow, especially starting on the second row. Or on the front row in second. Sorry about that.
Second starting position. I think he could have a really good race. The big thing, as you said, is just having that speed throughout the race, and he seems to be really good. He really likes this track a lot. I think he has the potential to go out there, be a contender for the win. Really curious, though, how some of the other Fords are going to be performing, though. Will the Penske drivers be just as strong? If they're up there, then I think that's a good sign. You're going to see all the Fords up towards the front. Keselowski, as you can see there in our graphics, 36. Just, wow, man.
He did blow a tire in practice, so maybe that affected the qualifying run.
That's why I anticipated maybe just some of the setback from that occurring. He would just love to finish this race in the top 20, I think, at this point. So just something to go right. Speaking about the top 20, when you look at that first half of the top 10, there's not a whole lot of surprises in the lineup. Maybe Daniel Suarez over in 8th place, a surprise to some, especially from what Ross Chastain said last week on how Trackhouse just seems to be really off their game. William Byron, of course, the points leader, is in 7th at 13 points ahead of Kyle Larson. Ty Gibbs, the only driver in the top 10 that didn't win a race last year. And, of course, he's still looking for his first career Cup Series win. This track has been good Toyota. People think about 23-11, Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick have won here. Well, Tyler Reddick 4th. You got Bubba Wallace 15th. Herbst, in his rookie season, qualified 25th. Joe Gibbs Racing got 2 Toyotas in the top 10. The other, of course, being Christopher Bell, along with Ty Gibbs. Were you a bit surprised not seeing more Toyotas in the top 10, just those 2, really? I mean, 3 counting Tyler Reddick.
A little bit, especially Christopher Bell, because, he obviously always qualifies on the pole here, but he obviously did slot in at 3rd and will be joined by Tyler Reddick in the 2nd row, and Ty Gibbs will be right behind Reddick in row 3. I do think it's interesting to take a look at the rest of the top 20. You obviously have Hamlin in 14th, and then it's a string of Toyotas basically after that with Bubba, Eric Jones, John Hunter Nemechek. A sneaky strong qualifying run at Kansas for both the LMC cars. And then you have Chase Briscoe in 19th. I think that this track lends more to drivers that, as I mentioned earlier, take care of their equipment and can really manage their tire life. And I have a feeling that with, JGR, Legacy especially, and 2311 in particular, we're going to have 3 teams coming out of Toyota that have a chance to score a top 10 this weekend, as long as things kind of, go their way. I wouldn't be surprised if we see kind of like the manufacturers like almost show that they are stronger in a certain part of the run. I almost feel like the Chevys will be stronger in the short to middle part of the run. So I'm thinking 15 to 25, maybe 30 laps. I think from there, you'll see the Toyotas really start to mount a charge around the 20 lap portion of the run and beyond. Whereas the Fords, as we've seen, especially with Ryan Blaney at Darlington, for instance, they really, really embrace the long run and when the tires are really starting to get eaten up. So if I had to take a guess, the Toyotas will definitely advance past their starting spots once the race really starts to get rolling. Hopefully it won't be like last year's fall event where we have a lap 1 accident that kind of blunts everybody's excitement temporarily. But I do think that we'll see a very competitive race tomorrow with a lot of different faces up at the front of the field, and hoping against hope we'll have some comers and goers, because seeing some of the races we've had recently, we really haven't had that.
I agree with especially seeing Toyotas coming their way towards the front. That's what I anticipate from Bubba Wallace, Denny Hamlin. They're going to work their way towards the front. Very likely they're a little bit more leaning towards the race setup rather than the qualifying setup. So overall, I think for Toyotas, can't count them out. They still are potentials to win. So I really think this race, especially after the last year, I think a lot of drivers have a potential to win. It's just a matter of just having that good, clean race and avoiding trouble like that first lap crash. Now, one thing to note with the Toyotas, the only Toyota outside the top 20 besides Riley Hurst was also Corey Heim. You look at the drivers starting outside the top 20, some of the big surprises. You have Alex Bowman, 21st. Ross Chastain, who last weekend said he felt like Trackhouse gave him a car to get to second place, 26th. Kyle Busch, 35th. Brad Keselowski, 36th. Josh Berry, 38th. We just talked about drivers coming up towards the front. Do you anticipate them racing towards the front? Do you think some of them might be stuck in the mid to back of the pack?
I'm not exactly sure, how the race will play out necessarily, but what I can speak on is the delicious variance that is offered at Kansas Speedway. You can go from the apron and rip along the white line and then take your car all the way up against the wall and scrape it a little and find a bunch of speed there. It just really depends on how your car handles. Now, obviously, I think some of these guys are going to come out here with lemons, and it'll be really unfortunate for the fans of those teams. But the great thing about Kansas is that if you can stay on the lead lap and stay in the hunt, you have a chance to make the car better throughout the day and, reclaim yourself. I think another thing that got lost in last year's spring race is the fact that Buescher got a big penalty at the end of stage 2 that set him all the way to the back of the end of the line. And we're talking about a race where I believe there was over 25 cars on the lead lap at the time, so he restarted somewhere around 30th. And through sheer willpower and a great race car, Chris Buescher made his way through the pack and had a chance to win that race and came within about 2 or 3 inches of it. So I definitely think that even if you're mired in traffic, with how this track is set up and how it can be raced, it's really not out of the realm for you to climb back from dead last and make your way to the front. It's just a matter of having patience, getting past cars as quickly as possible without burning your tires up, which is a really, really fine balance. And ultimately, again, having a fast race car that you and your crew chief worked on really well together throughout the race to keep up with the track itself. I think that if you're someone like Kyle Busch, someone like Brad Keselowski, 2 former winners at this track, 2 champions of the sport, I think that they can definitely muster up that patience and equipment management that is necessary to march their way forward slowly but surely, especially in Busch's case, who was within 30 laps of winning last year before catching a lapped car at a really inopportune time and taking himself out. But yeah, I think that anybody in this race, if you can get your car handling right and take it wherever you need it to go, you have a chance to win. It's just a matter of keeping your best foot forward, or best wheel, I guess, in this case. But I just think if you have the patience and the wherewithal to make it up to the front, you can succeed at Kansas Speedway if you keep a steady wheel.
I think you captured it perfectly on the head that, essentially anybody could really work their way towards the front. You got all the different grooves. One of the things I like about Kansas, how you need to have that good handling car. If you could get it right on a run, you could work your way towards the front. It's very challenging, we know, and it's going to be challenging, especially for the rookies, because also towards the back, the other full-time rookie, along with Riley Hurst, Shane Van Gisbergen, which I feel we have not talked much about in a while. SVG,
not for good reasons.
Not for good reasons, exactly. SVG behind Riley Hurst in the Rookie of the Year standing still. Overall, Shane Van Gisbergen is 35th in the point standings, 52 points ahead of Cody Ware. This is not what I think a lot of people anticipate. I know folks probably anticipate there's going to be struggles with the oval, the new car, but at this level, does Trackhouse need to do something like a crew chief change, or wait till we get to the road course, hoping SVG gets a win and locks himself into playoffs?
Let me tackle another portion of this first. I think if anybody had any expectation that Trackhouse was going to have more speed coming into this year by expanding to a third full-time team, I think that they didn't listen to anybody on our preseason predictions. I explicitly remember saying that I think Chevy is going to have a down year, and while that hasn't exactly played out exactly as I had predicted, I did say that any team that wasn't Hendrick Motorsports was going to be in big trouble, and lo and behold, we haven't really had a whole lot of contenders that are Chevy drivers that don't drive Hendrick Motorsports car, and unfortunately Trackhouse seems to be one of those teams caught in the cycle here. I think that Ross Chastain kind of eloquently put it that he is not driving a very comfortable race car right now, and echoed that those sentiments are shared amongst his teammates. And when you have someone like SVG, who, while as immensely talented as he is, he's just not very versed in NASCAR Cup Series competition, especially on oval racetracks. I do think, though, it is important to remember that he did very well at COTA. He just didn't really have the elite speed that we really expected out of him, because we saw him dominate at Chicago in his first year and looked to have been doing the same last year prior to the unfortunate accident that took him out. So with all of that said, I'm really not that surprised that SVG hasn't exactly blown everybody's doors off to this point. I do think it would behoove him to have a bit more Xfinity truck, maybe even ARCA starts to his name throughout the rest of this year, just to have those repetitions, to really learn the racetracks, to find speed on them, because I feel like that's kind of where he's falling behind right now. Not only that, I just don't think the Xfinity Series car really produces not only the amount of dirty air, but the concentration of dirty air that the next-gen car provides. Because as has been shown on multiple broadcasts, the stream of dirty air coming off of a next-gen car is more concentrated to the center of the car and on back. So that's why you see drivers in the turns kind of stagger themselves to where they're not directly in that wake and still getting some clean air on the fender of their car to help turn it. I think that with some more track time and just genuinely some more repetitions, I think that SVG will at least get a better feel for the tracks, which he just doesn't seem to have right now. But I don't think that switching his crew chief out in race 12 is really a recipe for success. I think that continuity for a rookie, even if the continuity is bad, is still better than continuing to fiddle with the parts that you have. The 71 team lasted all the way through last season, and that's essentially what the 88 team is now. And they were able to get in top 5 with Zane Smith at Watkins Glen at the end of the year. And Zane Smith, though he does have a win at COTA in the Truck Series, is not someone I would really consider a road course ace by any stretch. So I know that was a bit of a long-winded answer, but I do think that they need to just keep everything the same right now at Trackhouse and see what they can muster until the playoffs. And then at that point, you can definitely cut bait with a crew chief if it's really not working out, but I just don't think that'd be productive at this point in the season.
I feel, especially with the road courses before the playoffs, SVG must-win situation, not only for the playoff, but also rookie year status. Just try to get something positive for the sponsors to see, because they got WeatherTech here, they got Red Bull, they got some big name sponsors that came over. And then for Trackhouse, just getting a win. We saw how Dan Suarez ran really well in Las Vegas. I'm wondering if maybe Suarez might have a good day in Chastain. If they just keep working away and making that car better and better, potentially finding the speed, being up towards the front late in the race, you never know how it could happen. He's won here before, Chastain out of Kansas. Cannot count him out. Last fall, during the playoffs, after he missed the playoffs though, so it's just one of those deals. I bet he'll be bringing a couple watermelons to Kansas. The rugby ball for Shane Van Gisberger, I don't need to bring that here. I mean, I'll be shocked if he get the win, but I think a lot of people will be shocked if he does not get Rookie of the Year. I know a lot of people predict SVG as Rookie of the Year. Now it looks like he has to win the race, get in the playoffs, and hope Riley does not, to potentially get that Rookie of the Year status. How big of a blow would it be to Shane Van Gisbergen if he does not win Rookie of the Year?
I don't think it would be a blow to a 3-time Supercars champion with over 80 wins in that series under his belt. I do think financially for Trackhouse Racing, they would really like that financial incentive that you get for having the Rookie of the Year on your team. And I think that it would probably behoove them to make sure he makes the postseason. But at the same time, I just haven't really seen much out of SVG, even at tracks that I thought that he might contend at. Last year at Martinsville in the Colleague car, he finished 12th, I believe, which was a superb run that I don't think anybody really expected. And with that said, he really hasn't been able to replicate that in any way this season for whatever reason that is. And I think that that's more of a sign of the rest of the field kind of combing through the data and having that kind of understanding of oval racing to really know like how to generate more speed, whereas SVG really hasn't developed that skill just yet. So I do think that it wouldn't really be a dent to him one way or the other. I mean, the guy already has a cup win in his debut under his belt and was a force in the Xfinity series last season and probably could have made the round of 8 in that series, had a couple of things at the Roval gone better for him. But I think that the Rookie of the Year battle is probably the least of his concerns. I think this is more of a learning year for that team. And I think that he probably is learning some really hard lessons this season, and hopefully going into next year, it'll be, beneficial. There will be a bit of a payoff with that. But yeah, right now, everything doesn't look too bright over in the 88 camp, but the road course section of this schedule is about to kick in, and I'm sure that that'll make that 88 team and Trackhouse Racing as a whole very happy, considering that they have Daniel Suarez, road course winner, Ross Chastain, road course winner, and Connor Zilich in a fourth unchartered car. And we saw how well he performed at COTA in a track that he'd never raced on before. So, yeah, I think that Trackhouse is probably really looking forward to this summer stretch that's coming up after the All-Star break to really recalibrate and get their act together, more or less, without, sounding too audacious about it. They just don't really have the qualifying acumen to this point to really give me confidence that they have, speed coming off the truck. But Daniel Suarez getting an 8th place qualifying run today, which I think he ran about the same last fall in the playoffs. So it seems like maybe some of that data or some of the knowledge that they gained from that particular qualifying session and that race weekend seems to have translated over to this weekend. So hopefully they can weasel out more than a 13th place finish that they kind of clung on to towards the end and can really try to move forward and contend for the win. Because if we remember, they had speed at Las Vegas and had the lead on that late run to the finish. And unfortunately, it seemed that Suarez bottomed out in turns 1 and 2 because the tire pressures weren't exactly up to where they needed to be to keep the diffuser off of the ground and keep the car from chattering up the hill. But if they can take those same principles that they learned at Vegas earlier this year and translate them over to Kansas, I'm sure that they'll be able to, as a whole, really make a concerted effort to march towards a victory this season for the 99 team. But as you mentioned, Ross Chastain is the most recent winner here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw 2 Trackhouse cars have a really good run tomorrow.
I'm thinking, yes, if we see Dan Suarez, clean race, everything from what they learned in Vegas applied, he's going to be up towards the front. Chastain's going to work his way towards the front. I think he's just that good when it comes to telling the team what he needs. Shane Van Gisbergen logged the laps, finished the race, bring the car home in one piece. I mean, we've heard that plenty of times for rookies to do. At Kansas, that'll be great because if you come in during the playoffs, if by somehow he's still in the playoffs because he gets the wins at those road courses, that could be very valuable, learn lessons. As for Rookie of the Year stats, but I do think it would be a huge boost for Riley Herbst to get Rookie of the Year if he was to win it. I think if Shane Van Gisbergen was to not win it, it's not going to be that big of a loss compared to Riley Herbst, who we know more dependent on bringing the funds in, trying to get that ride somewhere, where Shane Van Gisbergen, if he misses out on Rookie of the Year, he's still, as you mentioned, all the wins he has in supercars, all the accomplishments. Yeah, it would be a bummer to miss out on Rookie of the Year, but I think he will still be better off compared to where Riley Herbst would be if he loses out on that Rookie of the Year. So,
yeah, I mean, I feel that's something that's kind of gone underscored in the ongoing lawsuit conversations is we had an update on the appeal NASCAR filed for the preliminary injunction that was granted to 2311 and Front Row Motorsports. I was let known that Herbst is riding with 2311 on a 3-year contract, but if that charter gets revoked for the 35 car and for the 23 and 45, I feel like the clauses in that contract disappear and he would be looking for a ride as soon as next season. Because I would imagine that part of the deal to get him into that ride was him helping fund the purchase of that charter from Stewart-Haas Racing last year. So, yeah, I do think that's something to look at going forward, especially with, it seeming like the courts kind of looked in the direction of NASCAR in a positive way that might take those charters out of those teams' hands for the time being. So yeah, that'll be something to really look out for. And yeah, I do think that financially speaking, the 35 team getting Rookie of the Year would definitely be a benefit compared to the 88. like you said, it doesn't really put a dent into SVG's legacy if he doesn't get Rookie of the Year in NASCAR.
Exactly. I mean, Dale Earnhardt Jr. lost Rookie of the Year to Matt Kenseth.
Jimmy
Dale
Johnson
Earnhardt,
lost it to Ryan Newman.
yeah. So I mean, there's definitely that financial aspect that teams would love to have those swag that say it's Rookie of the Year, but they're not exactly the biggest selling items ever, too. So I mean, it just, I think, a sense of pride of, for Riley Herbst, if he could say I beat Shane Van Gisbergen for Rookie of the Year, that would be huge for him. But for Shane Van Gisbergen, on to the next race. And of course, we're just about out of time here, so let's go on to pick a winner. It is a very close leaderboard. Of course, this leaderboard has not been updated yet prior to Marc Marquez winning the race. So that means Kiska, you, Tanner, I think everybody gets a point for Marc Marquez winning that point race. No, a lot of folks predicted Alex Palou to win the race today. Boy, he just dominated. So, I mean, 2 for 2. Then we have the supercars. I mean, so now we're getting down to it. NASCAR Cup Series. Time for everyone to chat room comment. Who do you think is going to win the NASCAR Cup Series race at Kansas Advent 400? Tanner, starting with you. Who is going to be the winner of the Cup Series race?
God, I feel like a broken record. I've said this man's name on air, I think 3 times to this point, and he still hasn't pulled through for me. But what's another time for Ryan Blaney? The man has come so close to victory so many times this year, and unfortunately, defeat just keeps grabbing him and pulling him back under. And he has had some near misses at Kansas Speedway before. I distinctly recall the 2021 spring race where Kyle Larson dominated the event, but there was an overtime restart, and Larson kind of pushed up and pushed both of them into the fence and took them both out of the event, basically. There was also the, I believe, 2018 spring race here where Kevin Harvick made that incredible charge to the finish. But if you remember, Ryan Blaney led a significant portion of that race as well, and unfortunately took himself out in an over-aggressive, what I would consider a fit of rage, trying to door slam Kyle Larson, and it sent his number 12 Dex Imaging car right into the fence. So I feel like Ryan Blaney has had speed at Kansas Speedway a number of times in the past, and we saw him have that dominating run at Darlington at a track that also has a pretty high degree of tire wear. And honestly, at this point, I'm ready to say that Ryan Blaney is probably the best driver at managing his equipment in the Cup Series right now. That's below 40. Obviously, Denny Hamlin's pretty much got everybody beat at that, but Ryan Blaney is a significant factor at most racetracks, and I see Kansas Speedway being a similar story for him. It'll be all about how well his team executes, because I have no doubt that Ryan Blaney is going to come out there with speed. He is a champion of this sport, and honestly, the Penske team has a penchant over the past few years of getting their wins in quick proximity. Last year, they got all 3 wins, all 3 first wins for the team in the month of June. You had Gateway with Cindric, which would have been Blaney had he not run out of gas. Then you had Iowa with Blaney, and then you had, at the very end of the month of June, Nashville with Logano in that 5 overtime. People call it a thriller. I do not agree.
Yeah.
But I do think Ryan Blaney is going to have a fantastic day tomorrow and finally get that victory in front of Kansas City.
Blaney is a good pick. I was really torn, especially after qualifying, seeing how everyone did. Going into it, I was thinking I was going to go with Christopher Bell, maybe Tyler Reddick. I was thinking a lot about going with one of those two. I just feel like when Larson's up front, if he puts together that good race, he could do it. It's just a mistake here or there just seems to ruin his day, and I just think I'm just going to have to go with Larson. I just think just put it there, try to get another win this season. I'll put him up to 3 wins this year. it'll be really interesting to see how Kyle Larson could do as well as the rest of the field at Kansas Speedway. And of course, tomorrow we'll be back on the air for wrapping up the NASCAR Cup Series race, as well as IndyCar, MotoGP, and Supercar Series, plus the grid ranking. Alex Palou going to be the leader again. I mean, I gotta quickly just say 4 wins of 5 races, doing something that we haven't seen since AJ Floyd in 1964.
We were about to go fight the Vietnam War when the last time somebody had this incredible of a start, gray star presence. It's genuinely insane. That Alex Palou, I said it in our Slack chat, the guy is the best driver on earth right now, and I'm tired of hearing about Kyle Larson and Max Verstappen. The guy is fast in an IndyCar. He's fast in a prototype in IMSA. You put him in anything, he's going to find speed. And at this point, he is probably one of the best IndyCar drivers I've ever seen. And he's only 28. He's my age. So he's got a long, long way to go in his racing career if he wants to keep going. So, what we've seen out of him has just been immense and unparalleled in our lifetimes, obviously, because neither of us were alive in 1964 to see AJ Foyt put on a clinic like that. So, Alex Palou, special driver, very special driver, and having a generational mercurial season.
And I know last week in the press conference, which we have on our YouTube channel, Marshall Pruitt said to Alex Palou, "Stop winning. You're not giving us anything to write." I gotta disagree. This is something historic going on, and he is now going to enter the Indy 500 with all this momentum and such a big lead. There's so many potential storylines for it. Will he dominate the season? Could there be a second half slump? Oh my goodness, this IndyCar season, a lot to live up for. And of course, we'll recap all of that tomorrow. Monday, Grid Encore. Very excited. We're going to have a special guest host there joining Brandon. Wednesday, Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. Kobe, Matt, and of course, Josh, including the Grid Endurance Performance Index, next week's ranking. And then we'll do this all over again because we have more racing next weekend. The pre-race show will be on the air. Lots of fun here at the Grid Network. Subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our programs. And don't forget, tomorrow after the NASCAR race, Matthew Bro will be working on his article, gridnetworktv.com. Go there, read about the team here at the Grid Network, how you can invest, and the history of the Grid Endurance Performance Index and the Grid Ranking. For Tanner, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the races.